Pass.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Kimberley City Council meeting of Monday, August 17th, 2020. Our distinguished Mayor McCormick has a personal family emergency today, so I'm stepping in for him for the duration of this meeting. I also want to thank Head of Operations, Chris Armory, for joining us home from his vacation for a day or so, just to come and be with us. So thanks for doing that, Chris. So let's just proceed with our recognition that we are on the traditional territory of the Ktunaxa First Nation. We thank them for allowing us to live, work, and play on their unceded land. There is a resolution that's underneath the Ministerial Order M192, whereas the local government meetings and bylaw process with regard to COVID-19 requires council to pass a resolution to state the basis for holding the meeting without members of the public in attendance and the means by which the councillor body is ensuring openness, transparency, accessibility, and accountability in respect to the meeting. And whereas capacity for council chambers to allow for 2 meters social distancing was determined to be 15 people, and members of council and staff fill that capacity. And whereas the city broadcasts the public meeting on the City of Kimberley YouTube channel, and whereas the city makes available the 1-800-741-7180 phone line for the public to call during question period, it is resolved that the regular meeting of August 17th of the City of Kimberley Council be held in council chambers with some members of council and staff attending remotely via WebEx video conferencing software without members of the public being present in the council chambers, and that the meetings be broadcast live to the City of Kimberley YouTube channel. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Keto, seconder, Councillor Dow. All in favor? Thank you. Maurice, corporate officer, are there any late items?
There's no late items.
Could we proceed with adopting the council agenda then, if there's nothing to change? So move, Councillor Goodwin, and seconded Councillor Oakley. All in favor? And passed. Adoption of council and committee minutes from the meeting that we held on July the 13th. That we could have a motion to adopt those minutes, please.
I wasn't here.
Okay, Councillor Oakley, seconder, Councillor Goodwin, all in favor? Thank you. We're going to proceed with a public and statutory hearing. There is a statement that the chair chooses to present in order for these hearings to go forward, and I'm going to read those to you. So this electronic public hearing is being convened pursuant to Ministerial Order 192 and Section 464 of the Local Government Act in order to consider the proposed zoning amendments, bylaw number 2665 and bylaw number 2666, and they are to do with zoning. The overview of public hearing procedure: we will be hearing submissions by telephone, and we will have some callers waiting in the queue to share their comments. If anyone else is listening via the YouTube stream that would like to share their comments with these bylaws, please call that previously noted number 1-800-741-7180, and when prompted, enter the meeting number or access code 146-032-7854. 146-032-7854. When asked for the password, simply enter number symbol. Once you have connected, you'll be able to hear the meeting, but will be muted on hold until it is your turn to speak. If you are listening to the live stream while on the phone, please make sure to mute or turn down the volume of the live stream to avoid causing audio feedback. You may let us know that you would like to speak by entering 9 on your phone and raise your hand. You will know when it is your turn to speak when you hear that your microphone has been unmuted. We ask everyone for patience during the hearing, as we will be moving slowly to allow ample time for switching between speakers. There is a minor delay between the live stream and the telephone audio, so please be understanding. Any person who believes that their interest in property is affected by the proposed bylaws will be given an opportunity to be heard. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views known. Members of council may ask questions of you during your presentation for clarification. However, the main function of council members at this hearing is to listen to the comments presented and not to debate the merits of the proposed bylaws or any comments presented. You will be given 5 minutes for your presentation. I'll call for presentations 3 times before closing the hearing. Once the public hearing is closed, members of council cannot take any further input regarding the proposed amending bylaws. After this public hearing has concluded, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representations made at this hearing. So we thank you for your cooperation and your patience. So we'll begin with a brief overview of the bylaws and then call for any submissions from those at home. Troy, would you like to take that, please?
Yes, thank you very much. The proposed bylaw 2665 and 2666 apply to the property at 245 Archibald Street and the laneways lying to the southeast and southwest of this property. The proposed bylaw 2665 will amend the OCP land use plan, that's the official community plan, land use plan, to change the designation of the subject lands from residential, recreational, and transportation to commercial. The other bylaw, proposed bylaw 2666, will amend the zoning map in zoning bylaw 1850 to rezone the subject lands from the R2 residential zone to the C1 commercial zone. And the purpose of these proposed changes to the OCP and the zoning bylaws are intended to allow for redevelopment of the subject lands to expand the parking area by an additional 40 spaces for the new Save On Foods store that's presently under construction on the adjacent site. So if the proposed bylaws are approved by council, they'll be subsequently consolidated with the larger Save On Food store site and converted into expanded parking area.
Thank you, Troy. So before we begin receiving verbal submissions, pardon me, not transmissions, but submissions, we'll acknowledge receipt of any written submissions. Maurice, was there anything prior to the hearing today?
The city has not received anything.
So copies?
There were no submissions.
There were no submissions, thank you. So you will now be given 3 minutes for your presentation. I will call for presentations 3 times before closing the hearing. First call for submissions.
So there's only 4 people watching now, and there's nobody on the phone line.
All right, I'll call for the second call for submissions. Third and final call for submissions. Give it just a few seconds in case somebody's dialing in. With no further submissions, the public hearing for proposed bylaws 2665 and 2666 is now closed. I think we've done everything we need to do with that one. Let's move on to other bylaws that are taking place. There's bylaws for third reading here with regard to the proposed bylaws 2664, 5, and 6. That council approved third reading of bylaw 2665. We'll need a motion. Councillor Oakley moves. A seconder, please. Councillor Keto, all in favor? Oh, sorry, I should have had further discussion. Any further discussion? No discussion. All in favor and carried. That council adopt bylaw 2665, amendment to the official community plan, number 2600. Motion, please. Councillor Dallin and Councillor Keto, seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor and carried. That council approved the third reading for bylaw 2666, the amendment 145 of 2020 to the zoning bylaw number 1850. Councillor Keto moves. Councillor Dallin seconds. All in favor? All right, there, we're done on that page. We have one more on that issue, and this is council will adopt bylaw number 2666, amendment 145-220 to the zoning bylaw 1850. And those bylaws, of course, you've all had a chance to look at. Moved by Councillor Goodwin, seconded by Councillor Keto. Discussion, all in favor, and carried. Okay. We're going to move on to some new business. The Asset Management Planning Program grant application. You've all had a chance to do a little bit of reading about that, and we're looking for, is there any further discussion on this before we set the motion? Or shall we set the motion first? What would you prefer?
If you can put the motion on the table.
Okay, so the motion is council directs staff to apply to the Union of British Columbia Municipalities, the UBCM Asset Management Planning Program, for funding to provide asset management training and to measure performance to date of the 2016 Asset Management Investment Plan. And let's open that for a motion. Move of Councillor Kiddo, a seconder, Councillor Dallum, and we'd like to have some discussion around this. And who's going to lead that?
I could speak to that, although Pam wrote the report, if that's all right with you. The Asset Management Investment Plan was a very helpful tool we worked on in 2016, and it helped us measure the depth of the infrastructure deficit. One of the issues we're having, though, is we've been making sacrifices and working hard on renewing the infrastructure, but we don't really have the in-house capability to update that report and measure it. So the purpose of this grant would be to provide training to staff and get a 2020 version of the Asset Management Investment Plan.
And if I may, so that's a skill set that you'd be able to take forward for the next 4 years?
We'd like to be able to do that in-house for the
Forever.
rest of time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Any further discussion? Let's move forward then with the vote. All those in favor? All right, and carried. There is a second portion to that the city's portion of the costs associated with asset management training and performance measurement of the 2016 Asset Management Investment Plan be funded to the general operating capital reserve. A motion on that, please. Councillor Kiddo, second. Councillor Goodwin. Anything further to add to that, Scott?
Just that we're looking at investing $15,000 ourselves, should it cost that much, and the grant would match that for an equal amount to the city's contribution.
Okay, so it's a matching grant with BCM?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion? We'll take the vote then, please. All in favor? And carried. I didn't say any against because we all voted for it. So looking at the revised community grants policy, we've had a chance to review the policy, suggested policy changes. Let's put that on the table for discussion, please. A motion, please. Councillor Kiddo, second. Somebody? Second? Oh, Councillor Dell, sorry. And let's have a discussion around that, please.
We review this policy every year for language improvements or clarification. So that's essentially what we did this year with this policy. The biggest thing was the addition of the BC Winter Games Legacy Grant, which was a fund that was provided by the Kimberley District Community Foundation in the past. Whereas they would receive the applications, they would figure out who they wanted to distribute the money to. They would send that list to the city and we would distribute the funds. So we've written that into the policy that we will take that over. We opted to make it a separate grant instead of rolling it into our grant, just to make it a little bit easier for people to understand and for organizations that receive money from both the city of Kimberley and this BC Winter Games Legacy Fund, that they're not going to miss out on funds that they receive. In both applications. So yeah, that's about the major things that were put in there for clarification. There was some question and correspondence today around the fact that we have kind of strengthened the language in there about how only community-based registered not-for-profits can apply. That's been in the grant forever, or in the policy forever. I think some of the confusion is coming from the Kimberley District Community Foundation. Their grant process actually says that they don't have to be a registered society in order to make application to that fund. And their wording is actually, as these grants are given out by the City of Kimberley, no charitable registration number is required by the groups. But I think that's just a policy misinterpretation on their regard. We were always supposed to be registered charities in order to apply, or in order to give out money.
Councilor Goodwin?
So I've been cautioned that there may be a perceived conflict of interest with me sitting in on this because I am on the board. I'm the treasurer of the Kimberley and District Community Foundation. I've examined it from a number of angles, and because it's actually just passing on a fund to the city and there's no benefit to the community foundation, I'm not sure there's a conflict. So I won't vote on this, but I have some background I could share that might be useful. The Kimberley and District Community Foundation, in fact, can only give money to charities. It cannot give money to nonprofit societies unless they're charities. And because the Winter Games Legacy Fund was originally a city fund that was given to the Community Foundation to help us get started, the city has been comfortable with us giving the revenue from that back to the city every year to give out to nonprofit societies that aren't charities. And that's the only way many amateur sporting groups could ever get that money, because most of them are not charities. I have a slight concern that some of them may not even be registered nonprofit societies, but I think Pam is correct in saying that almost all of them are. So maybe that's not such a big issue. So Revenue Canada was concerned about the fact that the Community Foundation was actually directing the city in how to give the money out, in that we vetted the applications and gave recommendations to the city. And that is something that has always been uncomfortable and perhaps even not kosher. And so it was felt after, I think Jim talked to the accountants and they said, you really should stop doing this and figure out a different way. We have decided just to give all the revenue every year to the city, no strings attached, except that it should be for amateur sport. The policy is being amended so that our granting policy can handle that now, but it'll be up to City Council to decide who gets the money and where it goes. And the City Community Foundation will have nothing to do with that. We'll just give the interest every year. So, yeah.
Yes, Councilor Goodwin.
Madam Acting Chair.
Yep.
Pardon my ignorance. What's the difference between a charity and a nonprofit?
Well, it's a Revenue Canada designation. You can become a nonprofit by registering provincially, and you become a registered nonprofit society. But in order to get charitable status that allows you to give tax receipts for donations, you have to go to the federal government, go through a whole process and become a charitable society. Okay. Because foundations are under the federal legislation, we are only allowed to give money to charities. And so if it hadn't been for the assistance of the city all these years in giving money to local sports groups, and the city is a charity, the city is a qualified donee under the Tax Act, we can give money to the city and they can give money to nonprofit groups. Mm-hmm. But we should not be directing them who to give it to. Mm-hmm. So we're clearing that up. We're stopping that. That's not going to happen anymore.
Good.
And it'll just be we'll write a single check every year for anything we get. Our funds are held by the Vancouver Foundation, invested by their investment managers. They give us several $1,000s every year. We'll just give it to the city and away you go.
Okay.
Yes.
One more question for Pam. So given all of the changes and given what Kent was just discussing, what's the impact? Are there any negative impacts on the groups that we've been serving all these years? Is there any particular genre of group that's going to be excluded or?
No, the BC Winter Games Fund, that will still go to amateur sporting groups.
No.
But our own community grants program will still accept applications from those groups as well. So there won't be any impact. There was one statement in here that said grants will not be issued to organizations that in turn issue grants to other organizations. So that was a little bit problematic because we do give funds to Rotary and Lions Club, and they all give funds to other organizations. So I actually consulted with Kaylin at CBT or Columbia Basin Trust about this, and she helped me clarify some language so that we'd be able to better be able to go ahead and give funds to Rotary without that clause in there. So we just clarified, it's mostly language. And also, I added and made it really clear that applications received after 4 o'clock on the deadline date won't be accepted. That's been a little bit loose in the past. So if people don't get their applications in by 4, then they're
Fair game.
Councillor Goodwin?
So the one thing that we'll need to remember is to make sure all the groups know where to apply the first year this change happens. So we will reach out, the Community Foundation will reach out to everyone and let them know, and the city can make it clear that this is BC Games funding or Winter Games funding.
And we set the deadline for community grants program within the city for October 15th, same as always, and then we'll go with the February
Right.
7th or 9th, whatever it may be, deadline that KDC had. So
I think that some of the confusion about whether or not certain people can apply, I think comes down to the fact that we have yet again another opportunity for granting that comes through the Columbia Basin Trust or RDEK. RDEK, I think that they give it to us to facilitate the spending. And I think that the rules on that one are somewhat different than what we have. And I think that might cause some confusion outside of the City Hall.
their application deadline is May, I believe.
Yeah. Councilor Dallin?
So the piece you're speaking about was actually one of my questions. And so it says funds awarded are for requested purposes only and are not to be granted or awarded to other agencies. So how does that work with the Rotary or another group moving those forward?
Depends what they're asking for funds for. If they ask for funds for a fall fair, it has to go specifically to that fair, and specifically, I'm actually clarifying the language in the application form for people to truly tell us what they're going to use the money for. And then their final reporting will have to tell us that they purchased such and such, or they rented such and such equipment in order to run that event, or whatever it may be. And if they raise funds, they in turn can, if they raise funds by charging $5 at the door,
Right.
they can do whatever they want with that funds after, but the city funds that they get, they have to use those funds for what they've outlined in their application.
So just for clarification for myself, if they're supporting or in partnership with another group, there's no conflict with that, right? And then further, if I may, near the beginning, it talks about eligible individuals.
That is strictly for individual travel expense grants.
Okay.
So that's for young athletes or anybody who's going away for any kind of a competition or sport or something. That we give away various levels of grants depending on the state of the event that they're attending.
Excellent, thank you.
If I may, the topic, when we first put this together, this particular bylaw together, or policy, pardon me, the issue about giving money to people that were going to give it away in a different way were groups that decided that they thought it would be really nice if they used some of the city money to give a scholarship, for instance, rather than use it for their special purposes. With regard to Rotary specifically, the only money that the Rotary would ever ask for would be in support of a community project or something that they're trying to build. They would never ask you for money to give to somebody else. They would raise that in a different manner.
Right.
So, any further discussion on that? Yes.
Just one question for Pam. If there's a nonprofit society that is not in good standing with the province, do they notify? How do we find out about that?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Are we obligated prior to handing out grants to do the?
We always have minutes of their AGM. We get current budget, operating budgets. And we have to have a copy of their current nonprofit society status form or their charitable registration number.
Okay.
So yeah, if they aren't able to provide a current copy of that, then
it could be a red flag.
it would be a red flag.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, then further. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say that the first line of defense against that is us. It's a small town and most people know most people, and things are actually a lot easier at our level than if we lived in a great big city where you wouldn't know half the groups that were applying. But, yeah.
Any further discussion on this then? All right, then let us approve the revised community grants policy. All in favor?
I'm abstaining.
And you're abstaining. Please note that Councillor Goodwin is abstaining due to a possible conflict of interest. All right, 103rd Avenue at McKnight Boulevard sewer lining. This is a new thing that has come forward. It's not new to, I'm sure it's not new to Chris's group of guys, but it's first time it's appeared before us. It is looking to award a contract to do some sewer main lining, a project that's going to be $275,000 plus taxes. And further, that council authorize the chief administration officer or his appointed designate to execute the contract documents associated with the award. And further, that council authorize the expenditure of the remaining budget funds of $41,768 to fund any unexpected costs associated with completion of the 103rd Avenue to Knighton Road sewer main lining project, if needed, or to fund an expansion of the project scope if deemed prudent by the senior manager of operations. So we'll need a motion to accept that. The mover, Councillor Oakley, and seconder, please, Councillor Dallin. Any discussion? Would you like to fill us in on that there first?
A question after Chris goes ahead, yeah.
Yep. I won't go into real great detail with it. I think most of the information's in the report, but essentially this is one of the projects for the capital program for this year. It's lining some sewer mains from 103rd to Knighton Road. So there's 5 different locations there identified in the report where we'll be doing that work. It's an area where we see a lot of root infiltration and problems with blockages and things of that nature. So this report is just to approve the expenditure of and award that contract to the company identified. This year was a pleasant surprise. Typically, we only get 1 or maybe 2 applicants. This year we had 5. Unfortunately, 3 of them disqualified themselves, but they just didn't provide all of the information that was requested in the tender. So we're recommending that we award to Martech Underground Services from Langley, BC.
Go ahead, Councillor.
Just a quick question, Chris, around the non-compliance of the 3 tenders that were non-compliant.
Yep.
Is there a process there that you're discovering, you know, because it's always the best to get as many as possible. I'm just wondering what happened there. They're just, not focusing on the tender documents enough, or?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, it was in the tender documents. Some of them even called and asked us questions about what was being requested. A couple of chose not to provide some of the documentation, and a couple of these people are fairly new in this business, so they're kind of learning the ropes and what's required. So I think they have a better understanding now of what's required under an MMCD contract.
Okay.
And we've had a rather successful sewer lining project in the recent past too, haven't we?
We did a pretty large project up on the ski hill around Jerry Sorensen Way. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And all that's all worked out.
Yeah, it went very well.
Good choice. Okay.
Yep.
Yes, Councillor Dallin.
So just in the outlining the locations.
Yes.
101st Avenue, basically to 104th Avenue.
Yep.
Along Knighton.
104th is not included, but it's over to 103rd.
Okay.
Essentially, the parcel between Knighton, 101st, and 103rd, all of those sewer mains in that pocket of Lower Chapman Camp will be blind.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any further discussion on this? We'll call the motion then, please. All in favor? And carried. Thank you.
Yep.
The 2020 annual road hab program, a tender award again. that council award the contract for the 2020 annual road rehabilitation program to Terrace Construction Limited, doing business at BA Blacktop, Cranbrook, for an amount not to exceed $320,654.80 plus taxes. And further, that council authorize the chief executive officer or his appointed designate to execute the contract documents associated with the award. And further, that council authorize the expenditure of the remaining budget funds, 48,623.20, of which 40,000 will be utilized for patching in various areas of the community. The remaining 8,623.20 to fund any unexpected costs associated with completion of the 2020 annual road rehab program, if needed, or to fund an expansion of the project scope if deemed prudent by the senior management of operations. In other words, you can find a place to use it somewhere if it needs paving.
Yeah.
Could I have someone to make a motion? Councillor Goodwin, and second by Councillor Kiro. Any discussion on that? Yes.
I'd just like to commend staff. This is a really, really hard thing to decide where the money should be spent. And I think the choices that have been made, that whichever strategy you're using to choose, it's working. I wish we could double up the budget and spend a little bit more money. They're all really, really worthwhile projects, in my opinion.
Thanks. The Stantec report has helped us make those decisions, so that's a good tool. Yep.
Yes, go ahead.
Have you run into any problems with the Stantec report? Does it make sense? Does everything they said seem to hold true?
Yeah, it's actually working out pretty well. Nick and I have had a chance to go through it a fair bit, and a lot of their recommendations are what we expected. A lot of it is going in the direction that we thought we were going to be going, so not too many surprises. A couple of pieces in there that gave us some new tools to work with, but definitely a good thing.
Okay.
All right, then let's call a motion. All those in favor? And carried. Moving on to the next item. Oh, my computer's dumped out here. Does that? The annual tax sale. That council directs staff to conduct a tax sale in September of 2020, and that would be the traditional time period, and that the 2019 tax sale redemption period not be extended, despite the option provided by the province of BC as part of their COVID-19 action plan for municipal councils to delay the tax sale and redemption period until September of 2021. And you would have had the chance to read some of that information in your notes. We'll need a mover for that, Councillor Kito, and a seconder, please, Councillor Gallen, and discussion, please. Who wrote that up? That's you? Oh, Jim, there's Jim up there. Hi, Jim. Go ahead.
You're on mute, Jim.
We need you.
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that.
All right.
So as part of their COVID-19 action plan, council or the province issued order 159, which one of the options was to push back the tax sale for 2020, essentially not hold the tax sale this year, defer to 2021. We did a bit of an analysis on the properties that are on the tax sale list for this year. Those are properties that have taxes outstanding from 2018, 19 and 20. And it doesn't appear that the COVID situation has had much of an impact, at least on the number of properties that are included in the tax sale. We counted 34 properties that were outstanding as of August 7th. And same time last year, there was 40 properties with outstanding delinquent taxes. And as is typical with the tax sales, there's always the repeats on there. So roughly half of the properties that were on that list are properties that seem to be on there every year, at least the last couple of years anyway. So staff is recommending that despite the option to push the tax sale back, that we proceed with that process and have a tax sale in 2020.
Any discussion? Councillor Goodwin?
So Jim, how are we doing as far as tax payments and utility payments going? Are things, at the beginning of the pandemic, we had some discussions about what might happen and how bad it might get if things are badly impacted. How is it going?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but Krista has put together the stats, and we're doing really well on the residential, like barely any impact there. One of our big taxpayers did take advantage of the October 1st deadline on the recreation and business class properties. So we are lagging behind a bit in that category. Tech did come through and they paid their taxes by the July 2nd due date. They also would have the option to defer theirs till October 1st as well. But I anticipate that once the October 1st date comes around, that the one corporate taxpayer will come forward and pay their money. They're just taking advantage of that later tax date. But other than that, we're doing really well. Way better than expected.
Any further discussion? All right, let's call a motion. All those in favor of this motion? And it's carried. Thank you, Jim. Moving along to the next item, which is the Good Neighbor Bylaw, and this is news for us too, that council received the report titled Good Neighbor Bylaw dated August 17th, 2020 from the corporate officer for information. So this did you want to add anything to that, Maurice?
No, I just wanted to let you know that I'm working on this. There are some outstanding bylaw enforcement issues that we're having right now, which will require further actions, and we're just making sure that all our ducks are in a row so that we can.
All right. Do you require anything from us or any input from us?
Just for the report for information.
Okay, all right.
Move receipt.
Okay, move receipt and second, please. And second, Councillor Goodwin. All in favor? There we go. And you received your animal control report and your bylaw reports, and the council received those. A motion, please. No, Councillor Kiddo and Councillor Goodwin seconds. Any discussion? They're looking like everybody's doing a good job to me. Let's call the vote then. All in favor? And carried. Thank you. The check run. Generally speaking, that the City of Kimberley check runs number 48 and 49 in the amount of $1,746,782.95. Check run 20, 50, 51, and 52 in the amount of $768,927.74, and check run number 53 and 54 in the amount of $308,764.55 be approved as paid. There's a motion on the floor for that, please. Councillor Goodwin, second, Councillor Taquito, and just in comment, most of the large sums have gone to the 4th Avenue project. Everything else is kind of standard fare stuff that we do all the summer, a lot of summer stuff, you know, that gets paid to the hospital and to the RDK and all that stuff once a year. And so that's where most of that money's gone. We have been lucky enough to have the money hit. We'll call the vote on that. All in favor? And carried. Action items. You've had a chance to read some of the correspondence that's come through. The email from Dr. Mudray is asking us to resolve that council directs the mayor to write to the provincial government and urge them to make all prescription contraception in BC available at no cost under the medical services plan. This is a program that seems to be they're trying to get council chambers to stop the barrier of being able to have contraceptives for people who can't afford it. And so this is a project I think that the doctors have been working on, and I suspect they're going to have to bring it towards the provincial government. And they're just looking for support from the communities on that. So that would be the resolve. Does anybody want to make a motion to that? First, Councillor Kiddo and Councillor Dowm seconds it. Any further discussion on that? There's a fair amount of info in your handout there.
Councillor Roberts.
Yes.
Just as you said, like, you know, municipality, it's not really our responsibility to provide healthcare or this, but I think, you know, it is our responsibility to give it some weight. That this is it's an equity issue in my mind, and for us just to put a little bit of weight behind it towards the province, I think is worth it.
Yeah, it's not likely going to happen unless somebody pushes a bit. Any further discussion? Yes.
I don't see it as a municipal duty. So I just see that as a provincial responsibility, and they need to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I just feel like we're going into an area that's outside of our boundaries, but I'm certainly not against it. I agree with it, and I'll vote yes, but I do think it's cautioning that one.
Yes.
Yeah, I get that. As both councillors have said, it's not our primary responsibility, but the social issues that arise out of unwanted children or children who shouldn't probably have been brought into the world are ones we have to deal with our policing and everything else. So writing a letter we can do. I think we should.
Yeah. I think I'm not sure that nobody refers to the UBCM, but this could possibly be something that would go before the UBCM that would come towards the province.
I think it could eventually.
That may be where they want to take it. Eh?
Yeah. It's still a bit up in the air what UBCM is going to look like this year, but
anyway, yeah.
Keep it on the back burner for future conference.
Or the doctors may just want to do that through working directly with MSP or something. All right, any further discussion? All right, then we would direct the mayor to write a letter urging them to make all prescription contraception in BC available at no cost. That's really everybody, the way that it's written, not just those in need. Let's call the vote. All in favor? All right.
Chair, could I speak to one of the items?
Yes, please. That's what I was just looking at.
Okay, the first one, the email from Taylor White regarding the wastewater treatment plant. I just take exception to the wording of that mismanagement. I don't think it's ever been mismanaged. I think it's a old facility that a whole bunch of very skilled people and knowledgeable people are doing their very best to keep going until we're able to be in a position to make some change in the city. But anyway, I just found the letter to, it seems to me that it's possible what would trigger a letter like that, other than the smell, obviously, is maybe there needs to be more information in terms of the timelines of the efforts the city's put in preparing for a significant change in our asset here, which would be the infrastructure. It's been going on for many, many years. And when I read through the letter, I'm like, I don't think the person's aware of that, the effort that's going into it.
Yeah.
It's very significant. So I don't know. I don't know if their response is warranted. I don't know if there should be some kind of a graphing process, a timeline thing that goes on our website that explains the links. I do know I spent a lot of time in July on my holidays on the phone to angry people down there. So, and I just thought, okay, it's, in this situation, is there anything we can do that would have some history that we can share with folks on what's going on here, in our preparations, obviously. So anyway, I just, it's a tough one, right? Because a lot of the preparations are in camera. So it's hard to document that on your website. But when I read through this, I don't agree with the wording on it at all.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of that going around where you just have, you need a 4-hour dissertation to be able to fill them in.
Right.
Yeah. Any further comments on that?
I don't think there's any response necessary. I just wanted to make a comment.
And she just wanted to let us know. Yes. Councillor Goodwin.
So I would move receipt of this and the other two informational letters.
Oh, okay, that was coming next, yeah. And I would second her on that. Councillor Goodwin, seconded by Councillor Cato. And we'll take a vote on that. All in favor? Thank you. Carried. Is there anybody online who has any questions of council at this time?
Nobody online.
Nobody online anymore? Okay.
Vikings are.
All right, then we'll just, I'm not going to call on mayor and council items unless somebody's really, really chomping at the bit to share some things they're doing. Let's close this meeting, and we'll report that the meeting immediately following this meeting will be closed to the public pursuant to the community charter, as the subject matter being considered relates to labor relations, acquisition of property, or negotiations and related discussions. So we'll just call this meeting.
We need a motion to go into close.
Okay, all right, motion to go into close. Councillor Kiddo, Councillor Oakley, and all in favor? There we go. All right, so I don't know who of you has to leave this meeting. You start, no?
Yes, I know. And we have to turn off.
Your hands at the ready tonight.
Yeah, look, I'm just so